Hello, I'm Chris Lappin, and I'm delighted to be joined on the line by Jimmy Carter. How are you doing this evening, Jimmy?
Yes, very well, Chris. Really well. Thanks for having me on.
So before we get into your career, there's been some big news at Millwall this week. Ian Holloway leaving the club. Is it expected or?
Yeah, I don't know if it was expected. I mean, the results were obviously really poor the last few months actually. But I think everyone thought that the manager might stay because the chairman was fully behind the manager, gave him quite a lot of money to spend, bring players in the transfer window in January. So it was it seemed like the manager was going to be staying even if we did eventually go down, which obviously the boys have got a big struggle in their hands. But so yeah, I mean it was although the results were really not that great leading up to the Norwich game where they played at the Den last Saturday. Even though they got beat, it was still a surprise come the Monday morning that Ian Holloway was asked to leave.
Yeah, well, so what are your feelings on club legend Neil Harris taking over till the end of the season? Do you think he'll stay on, or do you think it's just a short term?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely delighted for Neil. Both him and I played in the same side when I returned to Millwall back in 1998, and he's a great fella. He's got a lot of affection for the club. A true legend. Such a great player for Millwall Football Club, and he's done his apprenticeship, if you like, in terms of he's just come out of the under-21s. He's been there. He's got his badges, and I think what it needs at the moment at Millwall is obviously with the manager going and Neil taking over, it's just to get a bit more identity back into the side and to play for that shirt. Over the years, Millwall have always had that fighting spirit. Even though the results sometimes go against, to have that spirit on the pitch and playing for the shirt and the fans, excuse me, has always been paramount. So hopefully Neil, and I'm sure, will get a fantastic reception from the Millwall fans, and I know they will delight to see him in the job.
Brilliant. So if you cast your mind back, how were you spotted? Was it for Crystal Palace? Was it your first?
Yeah, I was spotted playing for my district, which was Hackney Schoolboys, when I was about 13 years old. So it's I think Palace scout come up to me and said, would I like to go along and train with them, which I did. And I was there two nights a week at 13 years old, and then luckily they asked me to sign schoolboy forms, and then with like a guaranteed apprenticeship. So at 16, so yeah, and I eventually signed pro for Palace, but I was spotted around about 13 years old.
Yeah, then you had a short spell at QPR before moving to Millwall. How did the move to Millwall come about?
Well, I'd gone out of football actually. Though I'd signed pro at 18, my head went a little bit. I thought I was the next Maradona. I went from 25 quid a week as an apprentice to 70 quid a week. I thought I was Georgie Best. I was out clubbing, and I grew my hair long and was strutting around the pitch with no shin pads on. And within about 6 months, I got shown the door. So it was a big blow to me. Obviously, my football was my life. I didn't have any real qualifications at school, so for me, it was a major blow in my life, and it was my whole life sort of just caved in. And I was out of work. I was signing on a dole. I was working in my mate's off licence, and literally after about 6 months, I thought to myself, do you know what? Let me try and get back in. So I wrote to all the league clubs in the football league, all 92. I got two responses, and they were both no. So eventually, I rang up the PFA, and I asked them if they knew anyone who could maybe get me back into the game, and they put me onto a fella called Paddy Sowden, who lived up in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And he phoned me up and he said, "Listen, I'm not going to do anything until I come and see you and see if you really had that desire to get back in the game." And he came to my house, and he left after about an hour, and he said, "Listen, you'll hear from me on the Monday." And that was it. A couple of days later, he got me a trial at QPR, which is how I eventually got to QPR. And back in them days, I don't know if you remember, they had the AstroTurf, didn't they? And so it was great for me as a wide player, as a winger. Not many defenders like sort of sliding in and getting grass burns. So, AstroTurf burns, if you like, third-degree burns. So for me, I was flying on the AstroTurf, and the manager at the time was Jim Smith, And unfortunately for me, he wasn't willing to give me a go in the first team, even though I sort of felt I deserved a place in the QPR first team. And I remember playing well in the reserves, and one day after one of the reserve games, Jim Smith phoned me up and said that it agreed a fee with Millwall, and that John Docherty, the Millwall manager, was going to come round my house and discuss terms. So that's how it all started, really.
Oh, great. So then you were part of the Millwall team that won promotion to the top flight the first time in their career. First time in their history. It must have been an amazing season and an amazing time at the club.
Yeah, it was a real special time for all of us concerned, and to think Millwall haven't got back to them sort of heights since them days really is quite astonishing really. But I suppose in football you have your time, and that was certainly our time. We had a really good side. You had the likes of Teddy Sheringham, Tony Cascarino out front, Terry Earlock, who you remember, kicking wide into people, Les Briley. So we had a real nice balance in the side. Kevin O'Callaghan on the left, myself on the right. Keith Stevens. I tell you what, we did have. We had a really good mix of homegrown players, which I think is really important. And traditionally, Millwall have always had that. They've always brought players through and blooded their homegrown players. And I think that's really important for teams to have that mix and young players coming through, because they can really identify with the club. And we had the likes of Alan McCleary, Brian Hornicott, Keith Stevens, who would just kick everything that moved, and Mickey Coleman, Darren Morgan, Teddy, who come through the ranks as well. So half the team that went up into the old First Division had come through the Millwall ranks. So yeah, it was great years, and it was amazing when we went up. And obviously the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, all them teams didn't fancy coming to the Den. I tell you, it was like coming to Coldblow Lane. It was a really intimidating place, the old Den. And although Millwall now is probably not like that at all, but you can't replicate the old Den. It was just literally notorious, and opposing teams and even supporters didn't fancy it one little bit, which gave us a little bit of an added bonus really.
Okay, so you had a decent first season following promotion. What were your favourite memories of that season?
The memories really stick out. I think I scored about 7 or 8 goals in my first season back, in Millwall's first season in the Premiership, which was great, because I wasn't really renowned as being a goal scorer. I was more really my job really was to get the crosses in for the likes of Cass and Teddy and create as much as I could. But in that first season, I think I was notched about 7 or 8, which was hugely satisfying. But we topped the league in October, which was fantastic. And you still, I still work at Millwall. I do hospitality in the lounge there, and you still get people coming up to you and saying, do you remember that we went top of the league? And this is 25 years on, so. Yeah. It's fantastic, and that was brilliant for the club. And I don't think any of us.
If I remember right, you were flying high for most of the season. It was around the top 5, and then you kind of dropped off. I think you finished 10th. 10th or 11th.
I think we finished 10th. Yeah, I think we finished 10th. We were up in the top 3, top 5, as you say, for quite long periods of the season. We were going to places. I remember we come to Anfield, got a 1-1 draw. Paul Stevenson scored an absolutely fantastic goal in his debut, by the way. Yeah. And I think Barnsley equalised actually. Or I'm not sure, maybe Stevie Nicol. But we're going to places like Old Trafford, Anfield, Highbury, and really giving a good account of ourselves. Like you say, we were in the top 3 for a large part of the season, but I just think all the effort it took to be up there for say 2/3 of the season, we finally ran out of steam towards the end, and we couldn't keep it going. And like you say, we finished a respectable 10th, which was still fantastic, because most people thought we'd go down straight away.
And it was a 2014 season. League, 2014 league back then as well, and it's 10th is excellent. But, yeah. And in '91 you moved to Liverpool. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of talk of me going to Arsenal. Actually, George Graham was always down there, and with Theo Foley, the assistant manager at the time, and it was sort of like common knowledge within the game that when it wasn't like if I was going to go to Arsenal, it was really when.
Yeah.
And then, out of the blue, I got a call from my agent, who was Frank McClintock at the time, who was taking a He'd been let go by. He was our assistant manager, John Doherty, Frank, and for about a year he went into sort of like football agency and whatever. So he called me up and he just said, "Big clubs come in for you," and I was rattling off a few teams, and he would just go, "No, bigger than that, bigger than that." And I said, "Well, come on, just put me out my misery. Who is it?" And he went, "It's Liverpool." And it's like when you hear Liverpool, the word Liverpool, it's just unbelievable, and couldn't quite believe it. And went into training, and the manager Bruce Ruock said that the club had accepted a fee, and it was my turn to go up and get my boots, go back to the den, which I did, get my boots. And later that evening, I was due up in Liverpool. I remember going back to the den and, like I say, picking my boots up, and I was in the secretary's office, and the phone went, and it was Kenny Dalglish. And I wasn't, and the club secretary at the time, Graham Hortup, handed me the phone and said, "It's Kenny Dalglish, and manager of Liverpool," on the phone. I wasn't quite sure how to, what to call him. Like, was it Kenny? Was it, King? It was like didn't know what to call him. And I just said, "Mr. Dalglish, nice to talk to you." And he said, "Just call me Kenny, son." And he said, you wanted up here tonight. Meet you at Lime Street. I forget what time it was, about 7-8 o'clock, and you're going to be a Liverpool player soon. So I said, brilliant. So that evening, got my stuff together and everything, and Frank came to come to my house. We were going up together, and we actually missed the train going up to Lime Street. It was my little boy and my wife came up to say goodbye, and my little boy slammed the door behind me, slammed the door behind the missus, and he was in the house by himself. We eventually got him out the cat flap.
Yeah.
And eventually got him out the cat flap. And anyway, by the time we got to Watford Junction, basically we'd missed the train to Lime Street, phoned up Kenny, and it was like, we missed the train. He said, "Don't worry," he said, "get yourself to Preston on the next train." So I picked us up to Preston, went to Southport, we met Peter Robinson, sat down talking football for half an hour, and then it was getting late by then, because obviously late getting up there, missing the train. And I just said, if you don't mind, I'm going to get up to bed. And I said, "Frank, just give me a call when it's done." And half an hour later, I got a call to say, "Okay, fine, you'll be a Liverpool player tomorrow." So that was brilliant. So the next day, Kenny picked me up from the hotel. Went had a quick medical before, and straight into Anfield, where I met all the lads, which was unbelievable. Walking into Anfield, meeting.
Back then, it must have been just some legends.
It was absolutely. It's absolute madness. I'm sitting next to the likes of Ian Rush, Peter Beardsley, John Barnes, Bruce Grobbelaar, Jan Moby, Steve McMahon, Ronnie Whelan.
Yeah.
All these unbelievable players that you've grown up sort of watching on telly in the match of the day. So it's a really, really strange feeling to be getting changed next to them. But in a funny sort of way, you know that you've earned the right in many ways to be there. But still, it's just one of them where you think, well, you're sort of half pinching yourself to think, is this really happening to you?
Yeah, we've had a listener's question, and Ethan asks, how do you think your Liverpool career would have gone if Kenny hadn't resigned shortly after your arrival?
Well, it was a massive bombshell for me for Kenny leaving. It was literally 4 weeks after signing me, so I'd like to think, I know that back then, Liverpool were really, really choosy, and they'd done their homework in terms of who they felt would fit into the side and into the way, the style of playing. And I know that my style of play definitely suited Liverpool in terms of, it just did. And I remember going into I think I signed on the Wednesday or Thursday, went straight into the side at Villa Park, away to Villa, full house, and just felt so at home in the side. My next game was at home, got man of the match on my debut against Wimbledon, although we drew 1-1. And then 3 weeks later, Kenny had left, and for me it was just an unbelievable feeling to think that you worked so hard to get to that point where you're signing for literally one of the biggest clubs in the world football, and the manager who signs you all of a sudden is no longer there. So you're sort of then looking over your shoulder, thinking whoever does come into the club as manager, are they gonna fancy him? As it happened, Graham Souness took over and made it very, very clear from day one that it wasn't gonna be for me. And he said to me, "I'm going to bring in Mark Waters from Glasgow Rangers, so you're not going to figure, so you won't play." So he said, literally, if we get a club that come in and they bid the right money, then we're going to let you go. So to answer the question, I often think about it, how different it would have been if Kenny was there. I just think I would have been fine, and who knows what would have happened. But it's one of the things that you can't look back on. Things happen in football, and you get on with it.
Yeah, so I read that you're an Arsenal supporter. Is that correct?
Well, I grew up an Arsenal supporter actually. Yeah, my dad brought me and my brother up by himself, and we literally lived just about 10 minutes walk from Arsenal Football Club. So when he could afford it, he'd give us like little 50p, and that we'd walk to Highbury and we'd watch the Arsenal in the 70s, like Malcolm McDonald, Ian Brady, Alan Ball, Willie Young, and Pat Jennings, and that. So yeah, for me, Arsenal were my team. They were my closest team. But I have to say, when you represent a club like Millwall, it gets in your DNA, and literally, it forms a part of your persona, and it's one of them where the crowd and the club are just so brilliant. And for me, I would say that the club that really, really dear to my heart, right now is Millwall, and will always be that way, because that's where I really got most of my success and where I'll be fondly remembered. So for me, Millwall is truly in my heart. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was fortunate enough to go and represent Arsenal after I signed for Liverpool. So, but Liverpool are a fantastic club. It's an unbelievable club. The people so friendly. Love Liverpool City Centre. Love the people around, and just amazing. And the history when you drive through when we drove through the Shankly gates, going into training, going to Melwood, it's just the tradition. You can just smell it, and all the fantastic managers and all the fantastic players that have been there. So, going back to the Liverpool side of things, it was just unfortunate that I couldn't fulfil my potential really, and that will always stay with me really.
Yeah. We've had a couple more listeners' questions sent in before I let you go. Phil Barrow asks, are you still involved with Charity Legends games?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I represent the Arsenal charity and celebrity side that we go around most Sundays. Come when the nice weather kicks in, we go around and also play for the Masters for Arsenal and also Liverpool. I got a shout from the Masters back in November. They were in Singapore and Thailand. Yeah. And although I didn't go to Singapore, Didi Hamann had to fly back for the Thailand leg. So I filled in. I flew out to Thailand to join the boys, and that was amazing. It was a great crowd, and it was fantastic. We had a fantastic side as well. We had Emil Heskey playing up front, Patrick Berger, McManaman, Fowler, all the top boys. So it's always great to be amongst the ex Liverpool pros. And I enjoy the Masters, and we've got a few trips coming up very soon. I think in June, we've got a couple of trips to South Africa and India, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, brilliant. Then Crimey asks, which club fans recognise you the best?
I'd probably say Millwall actually. Although I still work, I do a little bit of media work for Arsenal, so I'm around the Emirates quite a lot. I do the co-commentaries and the live shows, which is from the studio at the Emirates. So I suppose Arsenal and probably Millwall. I mean, I haven't been. The last time I was up at Liverpool actually was back around Christmas time. I was on LFC TV with Ian Holloway on the Thursday night show. So, and that was actually the first time I've been back to Liverpool since I signed 20 odd years ago. So, but I love Liverpool, and thankfully they've invited me back. We've got Liverpool play Arsenal. Well, it's Arsenal Liverpool on the 4th of April, and MCT have got me on the match day show. So I'm going to be heading back up to Liverpool very very soon in a few weeks' time, which would be brilliant. So.
That kind of links into the last listener's question. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Anasur Rahman asks, do you think both Liverpool and Arsenal will finish in the top 4 and make the FA Cup final?
I think there's a really good chance that both of them stats could actually happen. I mean, Arsenal are going really, really well at the moment. They're winning both home and away. Great performance the other night at Old Trafford, I have to say, which I'm sure the Liverpool fans would have liked as well to see Man United at the competition. But no, Arsenal were fantastic on the night and fully deserved to be in the semis. Obviously Liverpool got a great opportunity to get to the final. Obviously you've got to hope they beat Blackburn, which is, I think they will. I feel they will do that, and I think they make the final. So Arsenal-Liverpool final is looking very much like it's going to be on the cards. I think the chase for fourth place will be really, really interesting. Again, Liverpool are going well. They're coming into some fine form. Coutinho's playing out of his skin. Sturridge is back now as well. I think both could make it. I mean, I know Man United are up there at the moment. I think both Liverpool and Arsenal could make the top four. There's a very, very good chance of that. Yeah.
Okay, and so before we go, do you want to plug your social media and any projects you're involved with?
The Twitter is Jimmy Carter 777, and as you say, I'm involved with we've created a football skills, a football freestyle app, which is called Elite Skills Academy, and so that's on the I think it's in the iTunes in Apple right now. If you just type in Elite Skills with a Z Academy, that should come up, and it's fantastic because it bridges the gap between the beautiful game itself and football freestyle. Up until this moment, there's been like football freestyle like videos and tutorials or apps which are not very good, to be perfectly honest with you. And then you've got also coaching tutorials as well. This bridges the gap between the two in terms of the fundamentals that are used in football freestyle tricks, how they can actually translate to match situations. So it's been fantastic, and we worked very hard on it, and the content's absolutely brilliant. All the footage was shot at the Arsenal training ground, which is brilliant. So it's a free download, so everyone get on that, and just let